President Obama could be facing a critical decision in Syria after ceasefire talks with the Russians fell apart. The State Department is now blaming Russia for attacks on hospitals and the deadly bombing of a humanitarian convoy last month. It could not be much worse. The Secretary of State John Kerry says Russia has turned a blind eye as the Syrian dictator continues to use chemical weapons on his own people. The Wall Street Journal, our corporate cousin, reports that U.S. officials are now considering other options that could include giving new weapons to Syrian rebels to help fend off attacks from both Russia and Syria. Think of this. The United States is considering arming rebels. Have you ever read a history book? Probably not a good time for that. It's the latest example of what is no doubt, without question, a proxy war between the United States and Russia. Hundreds of thousands have died since Syria's civil war broke out in 2011. The fighting has forced millions more out of their homes as the United States Congress sits on its hands, refuses to take action, and allows all of this to spiral out of control without its guidance. Why? Election year, that's why. Your Congress is derelict in its duty, and history will not reflect well on these people who sit on that hill for us. Disgusting. It's helped ISIS terrorists carve out their own territory in that region. Carol Lee is the White House correspondent for the Wall Street Journal and joins us live now. Carol, to suggest that Congress should get involved is an old yarn. Where is this going now? What does your reporting suggest?
Well, the president is weighing a number of different options. His national security team is putting together different options for him to consider. It's not clear exactly what he might do, what decisions he might make. It's been well reported and talked about. The president has been very reluctant to take really significant action in Syria and to get the U.S. more deeply involved in the conflict there. But when talks with Russia broke down over a ceasefire, the White House said the president had no choice but to go back and look at various options, some of which you described earlier.
Do we know specifically what's on the president's plate here, and has he got any consultation from members of Congress?
Well, we know that one of the options, as you mentioned, is to give bigger, more robust weapons to Syrian rebels, either directly, the United States doing that directly, or the United States greenlighting the Gulf countries to send weapons directly to Syrian rebels. Everything, there's been discussion about would the U.S. consider strikes on regime targets, but you heard the White House press secretary today say that there's a lot of risk in that, and that in anything that the president decides to do, he will be looking at what are the consequences. If you do X, well then what happens there, and how do you contain the situation and make it, is it going to get better, and will it require pouring more resources into it? And all of this, is coming just ahead of an election where you're going to have a new president coming in 4 months, who's going to have to deal with the fallout from whatever decision this president is going to make.
Yes, he or she will. Carol Lee, I hate to cut this short, but we have breaking news. Carol Lee from the Wall Street Journal, the White House